that use it?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is going to be right at the beginning of your product demo.
So that's when we start the product demo. Okay.
Okay. Since I'm borrowing his opinion.
See, that's actually.
Is your book out of order?
Maybe.
Oh, no, there you go. Yeah, those pages.
That's it. What I thought.
Okay. All right, cool. So yeah, go back a couple pages, right in there. That's fine. Right there's fine. All right, so right here's fine with all the companies that have it. Okay. So how could we be sure if Flexon Platinum coating is the right product for you? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Do inspection. I see that.
Keep going. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Recommend.
Do you guys recognize any businesses on this page?
Yes.
Which businesses do you recognize?
McDonald's.
McDonald's,
Home Depot.
Home Depot,
Lowe's.
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
I like all the chains.
Yeah.
The government, the courthouse.
Did you know that all of these businesses have a lifetime coating product on the outside of the building?
No, I didn't know that. No, God, no. We didn't know that.
Interesting, right? Have you ever seen anybody repainting the outside of a Home Depot building?
No.
No. Interesting, right? So they must know something we don't know. But what I'm getting at is with the Flexon Platinum product, the same weather fighting technology that's been available for commercial use and military use and government use and those kinds of things for many years now, that same kind of weather fighting technology is available for your house. Make sense? The Flexon Platinum is the only heat reflective coating on the market. We're already way past that, Bubs.
No, that's what I flipped off. Is yours in order?
Keep
It
going.
was.
Keep going. Keep flipping.
Oh,
Keep flipping. Keep on. There you
Here we
go.
go. Sorry.
All right. So we're at the letter. It says that the temperature reduction on the exterior surface of a wall is 40 degrees cooler Fahrenheit, 40 degrees cooler temperature to the touch. Right? That's one of the main reasons why commercial buildings and these people use it, because they save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the years in heating and cooling the building. Makes sense? So to get the same kind of weather fighting technology and the same kind of like cooling effect to your home, we have to apply it with a 10-step process. So there's a 10-stage process. So it's a little bit different than just painting your home. Okay? So what we do first is we do an inspection. And that's an inspection, not like ours today to find out what problems are going on and work up a price, but the inspection that's going to be done by the job foreman. He's the person that's going to be ordering all of the materials and all of the gallons and all of the replacement 2x4s and wood and things like that for the job. And so the foreman does his own inspection to begin the job. Okay? The first thing they do when they start work is they do trenching. And if you'll see in the photograph there, trenching is done because we're trying to prevent ground moisture. Did you know that there's a lot of moisture in the ground, naturally?
Mm-hmm.
And so anywhere where ground meets up with your stucco walls, we want to dig a trench there about 6 to 8 inches deep and pull the dirt and the ground away from your wall so that when we put our primer, which has a waterproofing ingredient in it, we can put our primer all the way down to the base of the foundation to where now we're trying to prevent ground moisture from seeping through. And here's why. I'll show you. Have you ever heard of the wicking effect or capillary action?
Yes.
Here's the problem. You know the way our houses are built, they've got an inch thick layer of stucco, and then right underneath that inch thick layer of stucco is 2x4s. They're called studs. They hold up the wall, right? Here's the problem. The wicking effect or capillary action means that water can be sucked upwards against gravity, right? And so this here is just a sponge. It's just a sponge. You'll see one end looks different than the other. Our waterproofing ingredient that I'm going to show you in a moment is called hydrophobic resin. This is a sponge. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to show you an example of your 2x4, a stud that's in your house, okay? Wood is absorbent. You know, wood can absorb moisture. And when wood absorbs moisture, does it expand or contract?
Expand.
Yeah, let me show you what happens. With a little bit of moisture, ground moisture, seeping through the stucco at the very base of your home, it's been known that a 2x4 or a stud can suck water upwards, called capillary action. It can suck water up to 5 feet high just from ground moisture. I'll give you an example with the sponge. If this is like the stud or the wall inside your home, the 2x4, untreated 2x4 with just a little bit of ground moisture. What's happening?
It's expanding. Just sucking it up.
If
And
you
it's-
guys,
and
if
it's
you guys
rising.
see the sponge there, it's expanded, right?
Rising above the level of the water.
And it's way above. It starts to go upwards, right?
Mhm.
And what's happened to the 2x4? Expanding.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what happens inside your walls when we have ground moisture seeping through the very base. If it gets to the 2x4s will do wicking or capillary action. They'll start to suck the water upwards in your wall. So people don't really realize how dangerous ground moisture can be. Hey, what's up, buddy? And that's why we do some trenching, because as we said, the capillary action in a 2x4 has been known to climb up to 5 feet high. It means filling your whole wall with moisture, right? And if you see how small this little sponge is, you see that, guys, in LA? I want you to listen and see how much water's in here.
Wow.
It's a lot, right?
Mhm.
And then this is what happens to your 2x4s. And that's the structure of your home. So what we want to do is we want to be able to protect the home with something called hydrophobic resin. And this is the end of the sponge, same sponge. This is the end of the sponge that's been treated with our hydrophobic resin, and I'm going to put that into the sponge in the water. And we could have that sponge in the water all day long, and nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to absorb any moisture or wick any moisture up or get your walls moist or wet. And in the end, because we're able to waterproof your wall to the base with hydrophobic resin, this is what we want the sound to be of your 2x4s. The sound of crispy dryness. That's what you want the inside of your wall sounding like. You don't want the inside of your wall sounding like this. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we use hydrophobic resin. And this is what it looks like. And like I said, this is in our primer. So we want to make sure that we put a good coating of this all the way down to the base of the walls and foundation. That's why we trench, to be able to get low with our coating, right? Hydrophobic resin is an ingredient that is exactly what it sounds like. It's hydrophobic. That means that it doesn't like water. So water and hydrophobic resin don't mix. It's a water repellent. Now, it's a little bit different than the water repellent that you can buy at the store. A little bit different than the water repellent you can buy at the store. But what it does, oopsie, is it waterproofs porous substrate. So you understand that stucco and wood's porous.
Yes.
Can absorb moisture, expand, and it ruins it. So what we want to try to do is waterproof the wood and waterproof the base and the stucco of your wall so the ground moisture and the water doesn't affect it. With hydrophobic resin, that's how we accomplish this. And so I'm going to drop an aspirin in the hydrophobic resin. Hydrophobic resin has amazing penetration capability. It's very thin liquid. So what will happen is you'll start to see little bubbles coming out of the aspirin. The bubbles coming out of the aspirin are the air being pushed out, because it's soaking, the hydrophobic resin soaking into the center. Because an aspirin's designed to be porous, one you would take for a headache, right? So when you swallow it, it comes in contact with body moisture, it's designed to dissipate and become medicine right away.
Right away.
So if you put this in normal water, usually about for every second that it's in this water is about a year equivalency, 1 year of moisture damage to stucco. So as I've been speaking, we're kind of approaching about 7 or 8 or maybe 9 years now, maybe 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, already having decay, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and now it's mush. So now you see that this aspirin's add a little bit of weather to it and a little bit of wind to it, but the idea is now you've got mush. So with moisture damage, stucco's got about 15, 20-year lifespan before it turns to mush. And it's trouble, right? So that's why we use hydrophobic resin. What I'm going to do as I continue is I'm going to let that hydrophobic resin do its job for a little while with that aspirin, and I'm going to show you how that waterproofs your house, okay? But do you understand why we trench, why we dig the trench? Makes sense? Then our guys are going to hydroblast. Hydroblasting is different than washing the house off. Hydroblast is done at 3,000 psi and is designed to expose and exfoliate the house and expose all the damage so that we can get back to fixing the house to brand new. Okay? Because some of the areas we look at today at first sight, we see damage. But it's amazing when we hit damaged areas with a hydroblaster, what really shows up. And by naked eye, you wouldn't even realize there's that much damage that needed to be fixed before putting a lifetime coating over top. Okay? So do you understand the need for hydroblasting rather than just washing the house off? Make sense? So we are actually going to make your house look a little bit worse on purpose before we start making it look better. Makes sense? Sure. And so what we've got to do now is once we've opened up the house, exfoliated, and opened up all the problems, we patch and repair the house to brand new. Okay? This, if you want to hold that, that stuff's called Tex Bond, right? You seem like a pretty big, strong guy. You play basketball and that, right? See if just with your fingers or your hands, see if you can break that in half, like a cookie. Just bust it in half.
I don't think so.
Can't bust it? Let him get a try. This is called Tex Bond. Tex Bond, this here, guys, this little cookie. See that? That's Tex Bond. Tex Bond is a proprietary patching material designed for stucco. So what happens is generally when you repair damaged stucco, normal stucco repair guys are going to use more stucco. So they'll mix up sand, lime, and cement in a bucket and they'll spread it all over the damaged areas and let it be, and then it's repaired, right? The problem is new cement and old cured cement never stick together well. They get what's called a cold joint. So all the time, those patching areas of new stucco where they patched are always going to pop out or crack around and come and show up again. So always chasing the problems and continuously patching. So what we do with Tex Bond here is we repair all the large areas of stucco damage out there where your stucco walls need to be rebuilt. But we don't just use normal stucco that's going to fall out again. We use something called Tex Bond, which is about 50 times stronger than stucco. And what it does is it takes the weakest areas of your stucco walls out there that are most susceptible to damage. It takes those areas and makes them the absolute strongest parts of your walls around your home, and problems will never come back. So we have a lifetime warranted patching material for stucco damage. Make sense? And that's one thing we've got to do once we hydroblast. The other one we've got to use is for very thin cracks, very thin, small hairline cracks, or areas that are susceptible to expansion and contraction. And so I'll show you what I mean. And I know my sales reps don't ever do this properly, so I know it's not going to be, unfortunately, not going to be ready to show people, because Eric has had his kit for 3 weeks and hasn't done a good demo for anybody, I bet you. So, you always want to make sure your ingredients in your kit are nice and mixed up and ready to show somebody for demonstration purposes. Otherwise, it's just a jar sitting there. What's the jar? Why do you have a jar? You know what I'm saying? Why show everybody all this shit if you're not going to show everybody all this shit to make it make sense to them?
Right.
Sure, they got to see it to believe it. So make sure your stuff is mixed up and ready to show homeowners so that you can demo stuff and people can see what's going on. Yeah, the kit is important. And showing people what's really going down. Okay? All right. So, the